Of course.
I'm not
Yeah,
gonna-
And then there's like XR, grad school, and then that's like either
Very fantastic.
no, and then you go to postgrad school, and then that's fine.
Very first thing we're doing tomorrow will be your logical fallacy quiz. So please do not forget about that. On Google Classroom, there is a Quizlet that has all the terms. It's not like a secret way if these are only the ones that are going to show up in tomorrow's quiz. But first thing we'll do tomorrow will be quiz. It'll be matching. So terms on one side. Remember, it's not definitions, but it's going to be examples are going to be on the other. So it's knowing. So the first thing you kind of want to do is probably write a little note to yourself. What does straw man mean, or what does non sequitur mean, and then which example would best kind of match up with that. So tomorrow we'll be doing quiz. I meant to look this morning, and I was trying to do too much stuff. If most of you did submit your cheerleading article questions in class yesterday, I know like last night, Addie, I got yours submitted. I didn't check to see if Jeremy, if yours came in, so there's a couple of you. If you didn't get to submit, you had some kind of issue with it, talk to me after class, let me know about it. If you did submit up until like a reasonable time last night when I was still awake and thinking about it, you should have got an email back that would have like your score, which would be in PowerSchool, plus like any kind of comments and all that stuff. So I'll check, actually next period I'll be able to look, so yours should be in there at that point. If I don't have any, it'll show up in the PowerSchool as being missing, so you'd be able to know if I don't have it. So that would pretty much limit any kind of issues with it. But otherwise, I did get them, was able to check them, so we should be good to go with that. Down here at the bottom, the registration forms and checks, trying to get those things in on Monday. So I'll be able to kind of extend the deadline a little bit into next week, but I definitely want to mail them out next week. If you don't have all your stuff on Monday, at the very least, I need to know, do you plan on turning it in so that I can constantly badger you for the next 24 or 48 hours, on Tuesday into Wednesday, as to Kobe, where's the form, where's the form, where's the form. Addie turned hers in to Madame, which is perfectly fine. That way, able to give the form to her. I still had to sign off on it, so if you are turning the form into another teacher, or you are turning the form into me for multiple classes, whoever teaches the CHS class does have to sign off, basically verifying that yes, this person is enrolled in my class, and then you can submit one check. The check, make sure it gets made out to the University of Pittsburgh. While we appreciate $245 to the Mr. Kane Fund, I do not accept them. I'm not allowed to, so we're not doing that. But University of Pittsburgh would be where those checks would be made. I think the only class that costs more money would be CHS Chem, which at this point, you folks are pretty much beyond. Otherwise, all the others should be $245. So 2 classes would be $490. 3 classes would be more. It'd be what, $735? Yeah, something like that.
You keep collect all this.
I collect them. I just don't deposit them.
I did, you can deposit them. You have some good candidates.
Mr. Kane's University does not exist, so should you ever get an email where donate for alumni to Mr. Kane University, someone is trying to pull one over on you. Oh, you just need a laptop? Yep, go for it. What we're going to do today, here's kind of like a little timeline of events. We are looking to, if not finalize, certainly narrow down, and then after you take the logical fallacy quiz tomorrow, we would finalize what our resolutions are going to be. We need 4. And what's going to happen, where it says SPAR debate resolutions, we have 4 resolutions that you would research, where you don't know which argument you would be debating, or the opponent, and you don't know which side it would be. So we would want to pick 4 resolutions that you would be willing or able, doesn't mean you would agree with both sides, obviously, but that you would be able to argue for both. So that if we have a resolution, you would be able to go with either side with it. So you would know going into the debate what the possible resolutions are, but you certainly wouldn't know which ones you would be debating. On Monday, I'm going to give you a rubric point value for it. It's going to be more like 25 points as opposed to 10 points, where if you win the debate, that doesn't solely mean you get more points. If you win versus losing, you can get 1 point or 2 points, but that's not going to determine the total point value, 100% versus the 90% for it. So we want to come up with resolutions that we'd be, hopefully, ideally, interested in debating. We want to come up with resolutions that are basically relevant enough, there's some need, there's some merit to it, that they're dynamic enough that you can look at both sides of the argument and be able to come up with something. And we want to come up with like 4, we could do 5, but I would keep it at 4, that are separate enough so that you're not like reusing the same arguments for resolution 1, resolution 2, resolution 3, resolution 4. The plan would be that finalize at least the very beginning of class tomorrow. Tomorrow we take laptops, we're going to go into NoodleBib and set up some accounts and whatnot, because we use that all throughout the course of the year, and I'll explain how and why. And then next week, essentially, you would be researching your topics, the selected topics for potential debates that would then begin the following Monday, which I think would be the 24th. So next week, primarily research, no quizzes or reading assignments or anything like that going on, and then we'd be having some spar debates on the 24th and 25th. They would be a little lengthier, not much, but a little lengthier than the zipper versus laces, crushed ice versus cubed ice debates that we were having. Instead of 60 seconds and 30 seconds, we would do 90 seconds and 45. And I would think you'd have more content that you could use because you're aware of the topics, you'd be able to research things. So any notes that Ashley takes on any of the topics, she would certainly be able to use, up here while she would be doing her debate. But you will get specific rubric, all that stuff. I just wanted to wait till we kind of finalize what those topics are going to be. So back on, I guess that was Tuesday, we were coming up with some ideas. We were struggling to come up with some ideas. Anything that people want to add to the list, and then I'll preface this with, out of fear of us having absolutely nothing, I made a list of like 12 possible resolutions. Not that we would have to choose from those 12, but that could at least kind of be an additional starting point for us to kind of look at.
Out of paper straws.
They're like making some kind of new fancy straw. It was on the news this morning, but I missed the story. Do you know about it?
Well, they like ban plastic straws in the United States.
Well, this looked like one of those gimmicky items that you would buy at Bed Bath & Beyond, like comes out all in chrome and all this stuff, and it was, I don't know how the thing worked, because it had like its own carrying pack, and then you would like assemble, it looked like a plastic straw, but there was some kind of disposable element to it. But I'm sure if it's at Bed Bath & Beyond, you could use a 20% coupon.
Yeah, true. Whenever I was in Delaware, there were no plastic straws in sight.
Well, and you said they are banned, like what kind of straws are being phased out? Which type?
Oh, plastic.
Plastic. And from an environmental standpoint, 60, 70 years ago, like 1950s, plastic was, this is the greatest thing that has ever happened to humanity. And now we're going, we have 14 billion bags floating in the ocean, or straws and things like this, where it is becoming a problem. An argument about like global warming or climate change, I think, not saying that it's not important by any means, but I think that kind of tends to start to turn into one of those arguments where if you're in favor, if you believe it's happening, you can't look at the other side. If you don't think it's happening, you can't look at the other side. But we could, to an argument, if we wanted to have like an environmental angle to it, as to ways to better eliminate plastic, or at least some things that we know could be causing some problems.
We could put net neutrality.
Yeah. And certainly with internet providers and versus with government regulations, lack thereof, still trying to kind of figure all those things out. Billy and who become
Go along with like Megan's like straw thing. Starbucks is making like strawless lids, but they're plastic, so like there's really no point in using straws. It's less plastic. It's less plastic, but it's like a strawless lid, like basically what it is. It's like for like cold drinks and stuff like that.
So like
It's the weirdest looking thing ever, but like I get that. But like
straws.
So it's kind of like a coffee lid, but for a
It's
cold
only
drink.
one-
Yeah,
Where it has
it's
like,
weird.
Probably
It's like the weirdest looking thing ever.
does it have like a little sippy cup thing? built in?
Yeah, it's like a weird thing. It looks weird.
I'd rather drink
I don't
out
know
of
what to
those
think because
cups
someone
than
from my
out of
work
other
walked in
straws.
with
It's
one.
not
and was like, "What is
Starbucks.
that?"
It's St. Arbuck's. It's a religion for some people. They go to St. Arbuck's. Starbucks. St. Arbuck's.
Must be.
At least Mr. Timken. He's a whole nother issue,
Alright,
which we won't.
so we can just
Oh.
debate this with him.
Yes.
Puerto Rican.
So just so far as like the
The
like,
blackout.
aftermath of
I like the reaction to it.
well, and you could probably dependent upon. I'm just going to put disaster relief, because this could be a different argument come Monday and Tuesday of next week than like what we would be able to say now because of what's happening with Florence and all those things. Another topic, and then Tyler, get to yours. Is we've been doing the safety drill SRP poster little presentations during homeroom. Bethel Park is doing an active shooter in school today. So Bethel Park is going through. They are doing an active shooter drill. All students, like in the senior high school at least. So all students are in the building. Letter went out to parents, and I think they're doing it during like maybe their third period. I might be mistaken with the period, but they will have like someone playing the role of an active shooter with blanks. So you would be in class, you would hear gunfire going off and going through all the training for it. It's a controversial action that's taking place because some parents are concerned. Like say you're in 9th grade, you've only been in the building for a couple weeks, you still might be kind of figuring your way around. Now you're throwing this in. Could a student have be traumatized from like listening to it? Is the community aware of it? If you live over by the school and you hear gunfire, I don't know if the neighborhoods have been notified. They probably know about it now because it's been in the news for like the last 12 to 24 hours.
Just a stupid question. Do they like tell the students what's happening?
A letter went home to all parents.
Just saying.
I don't remember if it was last week or like beginning of this week. I would think it was last week. So parents were notified. So students are aware of it. So it's not that all of a sudden, wait, what's going on? This is only a drill. They know the drill is happening, and I think they even know when it is happening. So it's not. It could be an argumentation, could be in English. I have to go to the bathroom, but I don't want to go in the bathroom in case I'm. So no, they're aware of the time and all those things, but there's a lot of controversy as to how do you go about it and preparing for it. So, and not saying I wouldn't do an argument that specific. Do you agree with what Bethel Park is doing? But school safety awareness, and all those kinds of things, obviously, would be the topic.
I think a big one is Trump.
Does he exist or does he not?
Mr. Kane, that's like an awful idea because if someone wanted to like be a school shooter in that school, if they did it that day, then no one would like react to it.
That was one of the concerns that was thrown out there too.
Because then they
But
would
wait, wouldn't they be
that's
extremely prepared for it then? Like, wouldn't it be the opposite? Wouldn't they be like extremely prepared for it then? Because they know the drill's gonna happen and like they've been over it a million
No,
times.
because if it was a real situation, they'd be like,
I think the way, and not saying that therefore Megan is against it, therefore you're in favor of it. I think it would kind of end up being one of those divides where if you think this is a good idea, we'll be better prepared for it, and they could come at a time where no, this is a terrible idea. It's just going to, I think that kind of like goes biases. Tyler, I would stay away from. We do this and
We stay away from politics.
well, no, I'm not saying we stay away from politics. I would stay away from a specific individual. I think things that we can do, and one of, and here, I'll pass this out here in a moment. One of the things I put on here was social media enhances the connection between the elected official and the constituent. So, like, Trump uses social media more so than any other president has. Now, he's by no means the only politician to do that. I think you could take a look at should, for someone to be president, he'd have to come up with at least a specific type of government office. should you have a person who has political experience beforehand, or not? So I think there are ways where you can certainly use him and others as examples. I would stay away from the, he has been a good president, he has not been a good president, kind of cut dry. If there were specific issues, then like net neutrality could kind of be one of those things, could certainly take a look at that as well.
Global warming. Do you have?
Too broad.
How's it too broad?
Because what about global
Yeah.
if it exists or not?
He wasn't listening when I was talking about
Mm.
plastic
Them
apparently
old
10 minutes ago. No, I said like global warming would be one where I think people are so set in their ways. Like I'm not trying to dismiss it as being important,
Yeah.
but like if you think it's happening, you can't look at the other side. If you don't think it's happening, you can't look at the other side. If we were taking a look, and it's not on the page there anymore, but like the overabundance of plastic and things like that are still environmental issues, I think that would certainly be something that you could look at.
What about like immigration policies? Like, I mean, should I narrow that
Sure.
down more or just?
And that would be a way too, like kind of building off of your point, where certainly you could still have President Trump and policies and supports and arguments against part of it, but the issue itself is not him as a person. But yes, you could be looking at immigration policies. You could be taking a look at sanctuary cities and all of that kind of stuff. What I would say is if we did immigration policies, we probably would make that our, not that we have to have one, but like the political resolution for the set. I don't think we want to get in a situation where we have a healthcare reform, a immigration policy, and end up having like 4 or 5 political things, because that's certainly not going to be in everyone's wheelhouse. And Billy will come to you in a row.
Opioids.
Like as the way to handle them.
Way to handle
Yeah.
that and like decrease chronic usage.
Like awareness. Billy?
They're adding like, well, this has always been a thing, but like to sports, like more like safety rules or like letting you not do things that you supposed to, so it kind of like takes.
And I'll pass out the list here after Brooks. One of the ones that I put on here was that for safety reasons, organized full contact football should not be allowed before high school. So you would still you would not take away high school football, because you can't do that in Western PA. But that if like youth football you could still do it, but it would not be a full contact, whether it be flag or something like that. It was just not done before.
Oh, I know.
And they, when it was before Concussion came out, the movie, but when that whole story was kind of breaking, Pitt held a debate, and that was our field trip that we went to that year. They had shrimp hors d'oeuvres. It was really good. Little meatballs on skewers. Then the funding for those debates went away, and that field trip stopped.
We need a good funding.
But it was a debate between Chris Nowinski, who he is basically the brain collector. He's the guy for Boston University. He used to be a WWE wrestler, Chris Harvard. He played football at Harvard. But he's the guy who will call deceased NFL player families or anyone else, related to football that would have concussion history who have died. Can we get your brain for CTE, testing? So his job is to literally collect the brains. So he was, and their resolution was very similar to the no contact football before 9th grade. He was debating against the Pittsburgh Steelers team doctor, neurologist.
Really?
And the argument wasn't that football can't. I mean, the argument really was that you shouldn't be playing football. But the team physician's argument basically boiled down to that football is just as safe as really any other youth activity. Bicycles, skateboards, soccer. We're more prepared for it now than ever before. So yes, there are risks, but there's risks to everything. That's not the sole reason why you should get rid of something.
There's even like reasons like a lot of other sports like baseball, they're trying to take like in softball, they're trying to take away like metal cleats because they think that like people get too many injuries.
Yeah, and Addie plays 12U softball. They're still not required to wear face masks. They do on their batting helmet, but in the
Yeah.
field, they don't have to wear the mask.
But like it's a recommended thing. Like if you're a pitcher, you have to. Like
Right.
fast pitcher,
And
basically.
and if she's using fast pitch, for at least our league, the pitcher doesn't have to have the chest protector on.
Really? That's
but
a rule.
most
I
of
thought
them
you had to wear a
usually
chest protector.
it varies so much from umpire to umpire. When she was in 10U last year, the first game that they played, the umpire was like, "You have to have on a chest protector,"
It's like
which our pitcher used normally. The other pitcher, I think it was Quaker Valley that we were playing, she blew up. Like she
Why?
did not want to pitch with that chest protector on, and so she could not pitch until she would put it
a
on.
lot of
Get
girls
it
She
in
just
the
wasn't.
way.
I don't know.
a lot of girls have like shirts that go underneath their shirts that have like chest protectors.
Yeah, like
But like they make you wear those ones that like strap around you, so like I would understand that, you know.
no, it was the strap around one that she didn't want to wear. But that was the only series where it was, enforced.
I don't know if this is too broad, but I was trying to say hate speech, you have a right to speak however you want, because in politics a lot of times, especially with religious stuff, people will critique the other side, and then there'll be people who say that you shouldn't be allowed to say that, so.
So kind of like what is hate speech, what is not
Yeah.
hate speech. The things we've talked about in the last 15 minutes are infinitely better, I think, than where we were when we left on Tuesday.
You're just
Um,
throwing ideas.
So, what coming out to you, and I lost count, so who knows if there's enough here for Tyler when it gets down to him. We can take stuff from here, certainly use it. We can take some stuff from here and use it if we want. We can obviously combine the lists if we want. But the hope would be kind of coming up with 4. I numbered them so that we could, hey, number 5 I want to use, or number 1 I want to use, or don't want to use. Tyler, did you get one?
Yeah.
Okay, we got enough. Based from the stuff that was just getting mentioned, hate speech, opioids, climate, immigration, athletics, or anything that you're looking at here, are there any that anyone is fervently, yes, this is what I want to do, or no, this is not what I want to do? And if we sit here long enough, we can make cases for and against every single thing, and we'll be back at square one, which I'm fully prepared for. And I'd say that kind of probably goes a little bit, in some ways, towards the hate speech idea. Not saying we are doing for, but circling in the sense that some possibilities with it. Josh, did you have one?
Yeah, for nobody's fault. You said it was college is worth the cost.
Mhm.
Would you like college versus trade school? Like the pros and cons of both?
You could, and yeah, so for any of these, we could change the wording to it. We could do something that you could even set up a resolution where you go trade school is financially more beneficial than traditional college. We could say that post-secondary education, post-high school education is worth the cost. At which point, you could argue includes college, but also trade schools. So yeah, we could take a look at 2-year schools, 4-year schools, going on to master's degrees and all those kinds of things. You could do something that a 2-year degree is more beneficial today than a 4-year degree, and that could be looking at employment. That could be looking at the cost that goes into. Right now, on average, Americans are spending $30,000 a year on college, which is by far the highest. Well, no, I'm sorry. Luxembourg spends more money. We're number 2 in the world. But average, they're around 40. But the average for developed countries is about 15,000. So we're like double that. So I mean, and it could even turn into that the U.S. should offer free tuition to public universities. We could even kind of set up an argument like that as well. 12 is interesting, I think, in the sense that might be 100% of you, might be 95%, you know, are looking at some kind of post-secondary education, which money's coming out. You could even, and I don't have a problem with this, but you know, CHS programs, is it more a feeder way to try to get you to go to Pitt? You know, by signing up for CHS credits, is that a subliminal way of you should go to the University of Pittsburgh, as opposed to maybe exploring other options as well? So, you know, we could do that kind of stuff.
10. Definitely use it both ways.
I didn't know how I wanted to word this one. So I said Hollywood because it was striking me the number of reboots that we have so far as like TV series. And I know, you know, on Tuesday, Infinity War is the best thing ever that has happened to cinema. But I was thinking partially movies, I was thinking TV. What Magnum PI, I've seen commercials for, but basically any TV show that was on when I was 4 is now coming back. You know, it's
I think that would be a really easy one.
I haven't seen the new one.
The original
Now, you know, has the argument against, you could still take a look at individual actors. You could also argue with the type of animation, you know, like Incredibles 2 and all that stuff, that it's the possibilities of creativity, it has never been better, you know, because of like software productions and all that kind of stuff that we have.
I like 6.
All police officers should wear video cameras. And certainly with, you know, situations that have been happening in Pittsburgh, you know, over the last 6 months, there would be a lot of relevance to it for research for us. Anything else?
I wonder why.
Do we like number 5? I like number 5. Or do we like an idea of like number 3, where 5 is kind of like an element of 3? So,
We like 3.
like I would not do number 5 and number 3.
That makes sense.
But you could do something, and again, throwing out idea, not trying to persuade people to let's do number 3 instead. You could do something where, you know what, if you're a parent, you should pull your child out of football right now before, you know, your brain turns to mush. And that could be the sole argument that you're looking at. Or, in general, do parents try to protect their children too much? Part of it could be pulling out of sports. Part of it could be making sure that that GPS tracker is working on the vehicle, so that when Addie goes out for a spin, we know what she's doing on Babcock Boulevard and how fast. You know, does Josh have to send home a text every 15 minutes to kind of check in? You know, those kinds of things. Is there too much overprotectiveness? Or, you know, based on the fact that you have active shooting drills in schools and things of that nature, that, hey, you need to be more protective now because there are more risks than there were 20, 25 years ago when little Mr. Kane was running around. So certainly nothing wrong with doing 5, but if you were interested in that issue, I'd consider 3 because it would give you flexibility. The downside to it would be we end up doing 3. You're gearing up your argument based on athletics, and you end up arguing against Kobe, who's, you know, so you do number 3, but is looking at it more at the GPS trackers and all that kind of stuff. The downfall could be the arguments don't really mesh as well, because you don't know which topic you're going to do. So that would be the one kind of downside that would go to it.
You know, for number 3, the person's going to say, well, you shouldn't protect your children. Like,
Well, no, you're right. You're absolutely right. The part, and this is where things could be, where we could change it, where parents are too protective of their children. You know, where you kind of have more of that angle. If we could switch it. No, yeah. As a parent, it's a catch-22. If Sadie hops, well, yesterday Sadie put on her rollerblades, which that's a disaster waiting to happen. She didn't put her helmet on. I was like, go get your helmet. You need to put that on right now. At the same time, she wanted me to hold her hand the whole way while she was on rollerblades. I'm like, no, you gotta learn to fall. you know, or how fast is too fast and all that kind of stuff. So I think you're right in that, yeah, a parent should protect his or her child. Are there some cases where we've gone too far with it, and that might be a better way of doing the argument? But no, you're right, that is a valid concern. And we could also switch it to that, you know, in the next, we must find life on, or we must find habitable planets, you know, if we wanted to do something because we're going to ruin our own, you know, or could certainly keep it as the way that it is. May? NFL was what I was thinking when I was typing it, but then I just went sports and entertainment to try to keep it a little broad. Hey, I said, if we give this another 10 minutes, we'll circle everything.
I feel like with 11, like you could go like into other extents with like different questions with how like often like problems keep coming up, like the Kaepernick thing with Serena Williams, and now like there's a big thing about like Bautista with like how he like bat flips and how it's like ruining baseball. So.
Well, and with certainly some of these that you could, I said we don't want to try to have too much cross pollination kind of taking place, but number 4 and number 11 certainly would be an area where they could blend. The political cartoon in Australia's paper dealing with Serena Williams after U.S. Open would be a prime example of what you could be looking at.
Referees that are trying to like boycott her matches because they don't let her.
And we were, and on Tuesday, you know, we were mentioning, you know, Nike advertisement campaign with Colin Kaepernick. From the stuff that we were writing, because the difference between this page and over here is we were brainstorming ideas. This one I put into like specific statement form, so it kind of becomes, I think, easier in some ways to go, ooh, I would take this side or that side. From the stuff that we were mentioning here, are there any that we would definitely want to try to put into a worded statement that we could kind of compare with? Because here's what's probably going to end up happening, is my guess, is I'm going to take a bunch of statements from here, you know, that we have circled, and anything that we come up from here, put it in statement form. After you take your logical fallacy quiz, you know, you go on phone, iPad, or computer, I'll have a vote, you know, and then we can kind of select which ones we would ultimately want to do, which is perfectly fine. But I want to make sure that this stuff here that we were talking about does get.
Do parents allow younger kids to use electronics too much? Like
this happened on Tuesday because we had the Fortnite whole conversation, because you said like my mothers were smashing iPads and all that kind of stuff. Tuesday at, you know, Evil Empire Elementary School, it was still indoor recess because the playground was too wet.
Like, see, that's the thing.
What did Sadie, the one who is a terror on rollerblades, do during indoor recess? She played on her iPad, her school-issued iPad, the whole entire time. She didn't talk to anyone. She's in a class of like 17 girls and 4 boys.
You should expand that. Like,
pardon?
Maybe she's using it to learn.
Maybe they were playing multiplayer.
Well, she was playing games and stuff like that, but who were you sitting next to? I don't know. Were other kids playing with their iPads? I don't remember. And the reason why it was like getting me and Mrs. Kane upset is Sadie's not one who will go out to try to meet other people. She's mad that she's in a class where she doesn't really know anyone. I'm happy that she's in a class that she, in some ways, yes, in other ways, no. She just doesn't want to talk to other people. I'm happy she's in a class where she doesn't know other people because she needs to learn how to talk to other people and interact with them. So the idea that she's allowed to play with her iPad, whereas last year this wouldn't be happening because they wouldn't use them, she would have to play, you know, Trouble, Sorry, do puzzles or something like that, where maybe draw, but something where there could be more socialization taking place.
I mean, I guess you could even turn that into, does using electronics at a younger age create antisocial children? Like, I don't want to say like antisocial, there's probably a better word for it, but.
Well, in like number 8, you know, technological advancements will lead to humanity's rise. Could do the well. Either way, you're going to do the other side. No, it's going to lead to our downfall. Potentially. Where is keeping it general like that better because it allows you to look at the pros of like medical advancements and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to Fortnite, iPads in schools. But you certainly could look at it could lead to downfall because that ability to socialize, which I'm convinced is a real thing.
It definitely is a real
I mean, no offense to you folks, but I see generations of people come through here every year. It's been different the last 4 or 5 years.
For the back to the list that we made, I think one argument that we made, or a resolution, should Elon Musk be considered a fraud? Why?
What?
Because he
Can
makes
we
all
not
these
do
like
that?
kind of promises, like, hey, I'm
Who
gonna
is that?
build Elon Musk. He's the
Made
tech
more-
conglomerate that made Tesla, SpaceX, Boring Company, the company that makes flamethrowers.
How do
Flamethrowers.
you not know he's Elon
Yeah, how
Musk?
do like everybody know what is gonna be?
How's he a fraud? I'm just saying, like, he makes all these like grandiose promises, like, hey, I'm gonna make a submarine to help these
I
kids.
feel like if
And
it's
then I'm
something
gonna-
that like a lot
And
of
then he's
people
like,
don't
oh,
think
we
it's
don't need a sub, sorry. I'm like, I'm gonna make a tunnel for Dodger Stadium, it's only gonna be for $1, and then it's never gonna happen, because it's not profitable enough to
I
make
feel like
it.
fraud should be too much.
Elon Musk.
He's not like collecting cash from us.
Liar. He's a liar. Is that what we're sticking with?
And then like once he turns around and says something, oh, you
False
don't like
promises.
what's up? You're
Yeah.
He basically called build a submarine
When you had the
thing, and he really didn't need it. So he basically called that.
Oh, I was gonna say a big one of this.
For
The list that we made.
him
that-
smoking weed, that's kind of like what I'm getting at.
Like,
It's great, it makes space whatever he's done.
I don't know how to make that into a statement.
yeah.
Or like what specific parts of it should we or should we?
All right, tell you what. From this list that we have on here, I'm hearing nothing about number 9, so I'm not worried about number 9.
Base.
I'm gonna take out number 1.
Yeah,
Number 2.
I mean, if we could tie in with number 4.
2 and 4 could get combined in some ways. This one gives you the freedom to go into social media, whereas you're limited with it. 3 versus 5.
I go
I like 3.
3. Okay. 6, 7, 8. Enough with 10.
I like 10, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
You
You
can
can
really
also
argue,
go like
you can argue both of those really easily.
Okay. Josh left, but he brought up a point about with 12. Just have it where think of it as traditional 4-year college is worth the cost. Traditional 4-year college is the best way to go. Keep it at college is worth the cost.
I mean, like,
I think it's an important one for you to look at because a lot of you are headed that way.
Right.
I think like traditional 4-year college.
Okay. So when we say college, we're kind of thinking 4-year, but certainly you would be able to do counter arguments using
Yeah.
2-year trade schools, all that kind of stuff. And then from stuff that we were talking about before, I'll put immigration on there. And I'll also add something dealing with probably environment, plastics. We'll do some votes tomorrow to try to get a top 4. Logical fallacy quiz, don't forget.
I think that
Okay, sorry I forgot to email you back. Tuesday we were brainstorming these general ideas. There wasn't any other stuff going on. Did you get the
Yeah, I have like
Or both.
down last night, so I just didn't have a chance to do it. But it wasn't like
Almost done,
Oh,
but
here.
running low. So I had to go back and
Okay,
redo
Mr. Gang.
like every question. I think it turned out for the better.
And like, it definitely, like you did get a thank you for submitting,
Yeah.
like confirmation
I
thing.
think I had to. I always do the send a copy of my responses.
Okay. If I didn't get it, I'll let you know, but I'm sure that.
I mean, I do all this stuff here, so
Okay. Yeah.
it should be good.
All right.
Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.